Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today I'm going to show you how to make this tri-split tumbler with only one glitter. Super easy. I know you guys got this, so let's get to it. I already have my 30-ounce Hogg Tumbler already painted with my primer plus paint. And I'm also going to be using these two other Rust-Oleum colors. One is Seaside and the other one is called Coral. You also need some tape. Any kind of tape will do, obviously not duct tape, but I'm just using this painter's tape that I have on hand. If you don't have painter's tape, just make sure you kind of stick it to your shirt so it's not too sticky so it doesn't peel the white paint off your tumbler. I also like to make sure that my paint and primer coat is dried at least 24 hours before I do any type of taping on the tumbler, just to ensure nothing will peel off. Now to find the center of the tumbler, I just make an X, and that's how I find the center. If you guys don't feel comfortable doing that, please just measure it and find out where the center is for you, but this is how I've always done it, so that's how I'm gonna do it here. So the first thing we're going to do is block off where we want the seaside or that teal color to go. That is going to be the back of the tumbler. You want to make sure you pull off a long enough piece of tape. I believe all the way around is almost 20 inches. I think it's like 18 something. So make sure you pull a long enough piece of tape to completely go around the entire center of your tumbler. Now that I have my piece of tape already, I am just going to follow right where that dot is, right in the center there. I'm going to press it down really nice, and I'm going to pick it up. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and make sure it's nice and straight. Again, if you don't feel comfortable doing it this way, you can just come through and sketch a line all the way down so that way you feel a little bit more comfortable with how straight your lines are. But I know you guys got this. Now that I have that all lined up, I'm just going to come through and kind of pinch together my tape a little, just so that way it's a little bit more closed off in the back so no residual paint flies around the corner and gets onto it. But if your paint does happen to get onto it, all it takes is just a little bit of rubbing alcohol and it'll wipe right off that white area if it happens to do that. And now we're ready to take it outside and give it a coat of the teal on the back. Now that we're outside in a well-ventilated area, because you don't want to spray paint inside, you want to be well ventilated, I'm just going to give it a nice coat of this Seaside teal, and then I'm going to quickly remove the tape because I don't like to keep my tape on. I'm going to go ahead and remove it, and then I'm going to let it sit outside and continue to dry. And after about 15-20 minutes after it's done drying, we'll take it in and we'll get it ready for the coral that will go onto the front. Now again, you want to make sure that your paint is completely dry before you start sticking any more tape onto it, because it will peel your paint off. So just make sure it's nice and dry. Now I'm just going to take some more of my painter's tape and I'm going to block off the blue area. So now we are moving on to the front portion, and we're going to be doing that coral color that will be running across the bottom half of the tumbler. You just want to make sure that your tape is right up against that blue, and then do the same thing on each side. You just want to make sure that it is right lined up, right next to that blue, so that way that coral butts up next to it really nice. Now, when I was thinking tropical Christmas, these are the first colors I thought of, but you guys can obviously use any type of colors you'd like on this tumbler. It is completely up to you. Now that I have the blue all portioned off the way I'd like, I'm going to come through and I'm going to do the coral part. So if you've seen, it runs at a diagonal. So I'm just kind of figuring out where exactly I would like that coral to be. I kind of lined this part up and I didn't like how high it was, so I actually peeled that back, and I'm going to lower it down just a little bit because I didn't like how far up it went. See, there's no right or wrong here, guys. Just go with however you think it looks good. And I liked it right here, so now I'm just going to bring it around and finish taping it off right like that. And then I'm going to come through and just put some more tape across the top half, so that way it's all blocked off so none of that coral gets onto the white area or the blue area of the tumbler. Now, like I said, I'm just using tape to block off the white portion just so that way that coral doesn't get on there. But you guys, you don't have to do it this way. You can just take a piece of paper, just something to block it. Just something so that way the coral doesn't get onto it. That's all you need to do. But I had the tape, so I went ahead and I used it. However you want to do it, completely up to you. Now we're back outside. I have my coral, and I'm just going to give that a nice little spritz of coral on the bottom. Now you see I'm about 12 inches away, and I'm just doing light spritzes across it so that way there's no drips. And then I just make sure that it's nicely coated, and then I'm going to peel the tape off, and I'm going to let that cure, and then we'll be ready to add our epoxy and our glitter. Now while that cures, I wanted to figure out what kind of opals I wanted to use on this, because we're using an opal glitter to go over this, to do that one coat tri-color look. So I took a piece of paper and I spray painted it with the two colors that I'm using. And I have my two opals here that I sell in my shop. I have Moonstone and I have Shattered Opal. And I just wanted to figure out what I thought would look best on these colors. Now again, obviously, I want you guys to use whatever your favorite opal is. If you have an opal that is your go-to, use it. There's no need to go out and spend any extra money on supplies if you don't have to. If you'd like to purchase my Moonstone, I do have it available, but I'm just saying, if you have something already, just go ahead and use it. I'm sure it's going to be just as beautiful. I did end up choosing Moonstone. I just really liked the pastel colors that were in it, and I thought it went really well with the color combination that I chose already. Now I have my epoxy here. I like to use Alumilite's Amazing Clear Cast. I mixed up part A, part B, equal parts of it, and I mixed it up really well. There we go, yes. Mixed it up really well. I let it sit for about 5 minutes because I wanted it to be kind of warm when I go to put it on. Now when dealing with chunky glitter, when you go to apply it with the epoxy method, I like to add a little extra epoxy to my tumbler, just so that way those chunky glitters lay flat, just so that way there's a little bit more fluid under those glitters, just so that way they form around those curves even better. Now I did have a little extra epoxy, and I did make a coaster to match, but I'm not going to show it this time in this tutorial. I'll do another tutorial on that. Now after I got my epoxy all applied, I just kind of twirled up my hand a little bit, just so that I made sure all those little ridges from applying it are kind of settled before I apply my glitter. Now I'm just going to take my glitter, and you just want to put it all over your tumbler. And what I like to do when I do this is I will apply the first layer a little thin of the glitter, and then I will come back through and add another second coat of glitter over top of that, just to make sure everything is coated really well. And that will also help out with the process of making sure all those glitters will lay flat for you on this tumbler. Now I don't really have this issue, but if you do have this issue, I hear people really enjoy using parchment paper to pat down any of those chunky glitters that might be sticking up. They will let the epoxy cure for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then they'll come back through with a piece of parchment paper and kind of wrap it and make sure everything is all flat. I'm going to stick that on my turner for 3 hours, and after that 3 hours is up, I'm going to come through and apply another coat of epoxy and let that cure overnight. Once that is done curing, I will sand it if need be, and then I'll apply another thin coat of epoxy just to make sure that it is nice and smooth for those decals we want to put on. After that has cured for a good 12 hours, we'll be ready to put on the decals. You just want to make sure it's not sticky or anything like that. You don't want to put decals on a sticky tumbler. So I found this shop on Etsy, and they had the cutest tropical Christmas files. And I will make sure, obviously, everything that I use, I'm going to put into the description below. Even the waterslide paper that I'm going to be using. I'm going to go ahead and get these printed out really quick, and then I will show you guys how to seal them and apply them to the tumbler as well. Okay, we're back outside, and I like to use this 2x Ultra Clear by Rust-Oleum. It works amazing. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend it. So it's windy today. That's why everything's all like it is there. So I just take my spray, I go back and forth, I go up and down, and then I come through and I just do some swirls, and that's it. and then I'm gonna let that sit outside and dry for about 15 minutes. And you're welcome for the nice shot of my arm. Now we are back inside. So now I'm just gonna come through and I'm gonna take my scissors, because we're using transparent water slides here. Transparent, I don't think I said that earlier. But you just wanna make sure you kind of cut as close as you possibly can to these decals, and then we'll be ready to start applying them to our tumbler. Now I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of winging it here. No pun intended with the flamingos. But I knew that I wanted, obviously, the flamingos to go at the top and the white, but I didn't quite know how I wanted the rest of it to go. So, you know, I think I did pretty good figuring it out, I think. I hope you guys like it too. So for anybody that is new, you obviously want to have a little cup of water on hand, or a big cup of water, depending on how big your decal is. You simply let that soak until that backing starts to come off, and you slide it right onto your tumbler. And it's as easy as that. Then you just want to line it up, and then you want to come through and make sure all that water comes out from under it, because if you don't, it will leave like white patches under it. Then that means that there's either air or water still stuck under it. So you just want to come through and make sure you wring out all that water from underneath there. Once I'm done fussing with this, we'll move on to the coral area, and we'll start applying those decals down there. Now I just simply took some palm fronds and I took some tropical flowers, and I just kept it all right into that coral area. And I even came through and I wrapped some around the bottom, which I'll show you how I did that here. It's very easy. So here it is now. Oh, so sparkly pretty. So I'm going to take my decal and I'm going to show you how I wrap it around the bottom. You just want to take it anytime. There we go. Here I go. You just want to take it and slide it right over the edge, and then you want to take your towel and you just want to smooth it out really well, and it's as easy as that. Now you wrapped it around the bottom. Super simple. You guys got this. Once I have my palm fronds all dried out there, I'm just going to come through with my tropical flowers and I'm going to layer them on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with layering your decals. The fun thing about these split cups is really it's wherever your imagination takes you. You don't have to obviously do a Christmas tropical theme. You could do whatever kind of design you would like, but these are just a fun way to kind of give a little bit more character to a tumbler, and with 3 different ways of doing it. Now that front portion is the way I'd like it, after I apply this one last flower here, there we go. Now I'm ready to move on to the back. Now you guys see I did cut out some what look like stringed Christmas lights, and I tried to apply that to the back, but I didn't like it, so I ended up pulling it. But I wanted to show you guys that even I do that too. I put something on and I'm like, I don't like it, and I end up pulling it off, because we're all human, and that's our thought process when creating art. I decided to go a little bit more plain, but I still think it turned out really well. I just took the bigger palm leaves and the Christmas pineapples, and I think it turned out really well. Now I'm going to slow it down here, and I'm going to show you guys how I wrapped one of these pineapples around the bottom, because it's a little bit bigger of a piece. So I'm just going to show you guys what I did to make sure that it curved around the bottom of that tumbler really well. I'm just going to take it, and then I ended up having to cut it just a little bit, and that's okay. I just kind of trimmed up a little bit off the side, so that way it would lay flat for me, and you can't even tell that I had trimmed it. There we go. Now it's not all bunched up, and it's nice and smooth around the bottom. Now I'm just going to let these decals dry for about an hour, if not longer than that. You can even let them sit overnight if you feel more comfortable doing it that way, but I let mine sit for about an hour before I finish it up with the pinstriping. Now I just had some coral vinyl that I had purchased through Cricut at Michael's. I do believe I bought it, and I just printed out some stripes that I wanted to go around the tumbler. It obviously can't go all the way around the tumbler, so you're gonna have to cut it off at some point. I like to kind of do it right at the corner, which I'll show you here in a second. I'm just gonna put my name here on the bottom. So fancy. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I had a really hard decision because I really liked my lines. I thought they were really pretty, and I didn't know if I wanted to do the pinstriping, but I'm really glad I did. I think the pinstriping turned out really well. So as you can see there, I'm just putting it right on the outside of the blue here, and I'm just going to wrap it around my tumbler. You just want to make sure it's nice and smooth all the way around, and then we'll come back through and pull that other stripe that I made here. And then I'm going to line that up right on this side. Now I did trim it just a little bit because I didn't need all of it, so I went ahead and I trimmed it. And then I'm going to take it, and I'm going to show you here, maybe a little, there we go, closer view. I just lined it straight up with that and continued it all the way around my tumbler here. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and just kind of trim up those edges, so that way obviously you don't want anything hanging over. So here I am, I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife, and there we go, all trimmed up. See, super simple, so very simple. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing with the front. I'm going to come in right at an angle, right at the top of my line here for the coral. It's okay if it hangs over because we'll just trim that up here in a second. You just want to continue wrapping that all the way around, making sure it's still straight and in line with the color. Now I took my fingernail and I just kind of scored where I want to cut, and then I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm just going to trim it right up against, pull it off, and there you go. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. You just want to be very careful not to cut off any or too much of your vinyl. You don't want any little white gaps showing. And it is ready for its last coat or two of epoxy. Now I took my Alumilite's Amazing Clear Cast, and again, I mixed it up really well. I let it sit for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna give it a nice coating of epoxy because really I only wanna do one more coat. So I made it a little bit thicker than I typically would. Flood coat, there we go. And it is ready to go onto my turner. I'm going to place that onto my turner for about 4 hours, and then I will take it off and let it continue curing for about 3 days before I am ready to use it. Whether you take this design and make it as I've shown you, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more tips, tutorials, vlogs, products I have coming your way, and I will see you guys next time.